Hi, this is Cheryl back with you from Farmhouse, Frugally, and today we are doing all things pumpkin or pumpkin spice. I'm going to start with a Christmas tin that has been kicking around my house for quite some time. Not something that we typically use, so I decided to take this linen chalk paint and to go ahead and give it just one coat. I just wanted to cover the snowman and the blue so that I would have something light colored in the background. And then once this one coat is dry, I did paint the lid as well. And then I just Googled some images of spice tins and I found a really cute pumpkin pie spice tin and printed out on rice paper the size that I needed and duplicated it for each of the four sides. Took the Mod Podge and I went ahead and just Mod Podged one on each of the sides of this tin to make it look like an old spice tin. And then while I was waiting for that to dry, I stuffed it with some bits and pieces of styrofoam that I had in the house. And I was initially thinking I might put some florals in it, but I decided against that. But I needed the styrofoam to fill it either way. Oh, I did take an emery board and just go around the top edges just to smooth away any excess rice paper. Now, once this is full of the styrofoam pieces, I took and it was dry, I took my antique wax mixed with clear wax and I just went around the whole edges specifically, top and bottom, so that it would look more vintage, like a more vintage spice tin, something that had been around for a bit. And then I just filled the top with some of the green Spanish moss and put a neutral pumpkin on top. And today's challenge is Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice, hosted by Amanda, 6 Kids with a Glue Gun, and Katie from Lady Red Crafting. Their co-host or guest host this month is Mama Can Make It. Please check my description box for their channels and the playlist. Now, the second item is this glass perfume bottle of sorts that I got at the dump, and I had this, I think, Valspar leftover sample called Roasted Squash, and I gave this glass 2 coats. This is a latex paint, not a chalk paint. If it's a chalk paint, you might need to spray it first or put some kind of a slick stick on there, but with the latex paint, it adheres really well to glass. So once I have 2 full coats of this color on this glass bottle, then I just waited for that to dry. And then once that whole thing is dry, I wanted to give it a little bit of pumpkin definition. And I just went ahead with my paintbrush and some of that antiquing wax and just gave that a couple of coats, wiped that back with a rag, added a little more down the bottom to make it a little bit of the base of the pumpkin. And then I did that on both sides. And then once that was wiped back and dried, then I went through my stash to see what I had for some rope to make the top of this bottle look more like a pumpkin stem. And I just glued here and there, going around and around, and little by little I moved the rope inward so that it would get smaller and smaller as I went. And then when I got to the top, I just stuck that top piece right down in. And I could have gotten a stick from the garden. I could have tried a cork or a spindle. There's a lot of different things that you can do here for a pumpkin stem, but I had never done one with rope, so I thought I would do something a little bit different than what I normally do. And then once I had that completely finished, I had picked up this little leafy ribbon somewhere along the way, and it was in my stash, so I decided to just add a little bit of that. And then I do later on add a hang tag to this off camera, and you will see that in the finished reveal. Moving on to number 3, a couple years ago I had made this beautiful little tart wreath. I had a bunch of these, and it was starting to fall apart, and I had seen on Pinterest somebody making pumpkins from these, and I thought, oh, that was adorable. I will give that a try. Not all of them fit together, but I tried hot glue. E6000 definitely works better. The hot glue does eventually come off, so it's not going to be a permanent thing. But I went ahead and I just glued 2 of these together, and then I took the same linen chalked paint and just kind of gently went around the pumpkin, leaving some of the silver showing through. I could have done the whole thing and then added the antiquing wax, which is more my style, but I thought I would just leave a little bit of that. And then once I had this painted and it was completely dry, I did leave at the top just enough of a space to glue on something. I had this little wooden knob that came off of this. I'm not really sure what it is. This thing here, it looks like a marionette holder thingy. I don't know. But pulled that off there, and then I just glued that. I antique waxed the outside edges of it first so that it would have more of a vintage feel to it, and then just added the glue and put that on the top. Taking me on to number 4, I've had a bunch of these little homespun and other words on signs that's really cute. And I decided that for this vignette, I was going to paint over that word using the same linen chalked paint. And this is a crackle finish, so I took my heat gun and it did crackle a little. And then I had this stamp we found at the dump, and I just went ahead with my Stays On ink and inked the words on here. And it came out fine, but I should have waited for the ink to dry just a little bit longer before I decided to put the antique wax on, because it did smear the ink, which at the end of the day kind of goes a little bit along with this more vintage, old-fashioned look that I'm going for. But certainly that's a tip. If you decide you want to put some wax over ink, make sure it is thoroughly dry. Then I had gotten this big cutting board at the dump, needed much sanding. After I sanded it, I painted it, and then I took out these little knobs that I had from a furniture project, and I glued those onto the back side of this cutting board. And then once that was done, I have from some project once upon a time these little corners. And I did glue those on all 4 corners. I'd already sprayed this with a couple coats of a 2x clear matte finish so that it would be protected if it's used as a tray. Once I was finished with that, I toyed with the idea of putting on some handles. I didn't have any that I really loved with it, so I opted to just leave them off. And here is the vignette finished with the tray and the pumpkin spice or pumpkin pie spice tin. The couple of pumpkins. I added another pumpkin that I have made recently, and that is my pumpkin or pumpkin spice challenge. I hope that you like this. I hope that you will leave me a thumbs up and a comment. And certainly if you have not subscribed, I appreciate it if you would. And I want to make sure that you do not forget to check out the playlist that is in my description box so you can see all the other wonderful creations. I thank you for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.